first, Bloomberg.
Yes, confettis, noisemakers, and of course champagne. 3 hallmarks of a New Year's Eve celebration. My next guest's company has been making bubbly for more than 200 years. Michelle DeFeo is Executive Vice President at Laurent-Perrier, USA. Thank you very much for being here, Michelle. It's great to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
Is there any, let's start off with just talking about the idea that champagne comes from a specific region in France, and you can't come from anywhere else and call yourself champagne, right?
That's absolutely true. And not only is champagne from a specific place, but there are a number of rules that govern exactly what is in a bottle of champagne. So not is it just from France, from a specific area, but it also has to have normally 3 specific grapes in it. Predominantly Chardonnay and Pinot Noir are the 2 major grapes. So when we talk about things like Prosecco or Cava, those are completely different grapes altogether. So you're not really comparing just, it's not a question of is a rose by any other name is sweet. You're not even really comparing roses. You're comparing maybe a daisy that is Prosecco to a rose that is champagne. They're very different.
Help me understand, how do you get it to be so bubbly?
Well, it's a complex chemical process, but it basically undergoes secondary fermentation. So when yeast eats sugar, it equals alcohol and carbon dioxide when you make wine. For champagne, we actually trap those bubbles in the bottle. And specifically for champagne, we trap those bubbles, in the bottle in which it will be sold. And that's actually different from other things like Prosecco and Cava, which are actually made bubbly in a big tank, where they pressurize the tank until the wine starts to bubble. In champagne, the only way that we get the bubbles in there is to keep it under pressure in this bottle for anywhere from 2 years to, as we'll see in some of these wines, 15 years.
Now, one of the things about those bubbles is they have to be of a certain consistency and they have to be of a certain lightness, because people keep talking about the bubbliness of a champagne. What are some of the rules governing how to understand this?
Well, it's the fineness and the elegance. And there's basically 3 ways to get bubbles in a bottle. One is that you can just inject carbon dioxide. That's how we have soda.
Right.
And of course, the second way is to the tank method that I mentioned earlier. And the third way is the champenoise method, which actually creates that secondary fermentation in the bottle. Those 3 processes, each one creates a consecutively finer bubble. So a big bubble like you would have in a glass of Coke is very different from a very, very fine bead or bubble that you would have in a glass of true champagne.
I like that word, the bead that is in the bubble. All right, the bead in the bottle. I know you brought some bottles with us, and I'm just wondering if you could go through them to explain to people what the differences are.
Sure. Well, Laurent-Perrier, as you mentioned, has been around for 200 years. We create a number of different styles of champagne, and there's a champagne kind for every palate. This is our non-vintage brew. When we speak about champagne, there's a huge variation of what can be in the bottle. This is kind of the standard bearer. When you say champagne, most people are expecting exactly what this bottle has in it. It's predominantly Chardonnay, blended with some Pinot Noir and some Pinot Meunier. Light, elegant, complete party-style champagne, real crowd pleaser. But then as we start getting into different types, as people get more into champagne, you can go to something that's a non-dosage champagne. Basically, this is a champagne that has no sugar added to it whatsoever. And this is the driest champagne that you can get. It also has fewer calories because of that. So if you wanted to start your New Year's resolution a little bit early at the stroke of midnight,
and this is
would be the bottle
and is
to
it
buy.
specifically with a blue label for that reason, that you can identify it then as that kind of Laurent-Perrier champagne?
Yes, we like to keep it very distinctly different so you don't have to worry about all the letters on the labels.
Right.
So very clean, very kind of minerally, kind of like the ocean in terms of its minerality. So we have that in.
So if you're looking to count your calories, perhaps you want to go with this.
That would be the Ultra Brut. That's a good place for the Ultra Brut.
Now, what about the rosé? Because I know that this is, for example, even the bottle itself is an iconographic element.
It is. We actually are the largest selling rosé champagne in the world. We were the first house to reintroduce non-vintage rosé champagne after it had not been produced for a very long time in Champagne. And when we produced it, we decided that we wanted to put it into a bottle that had some historical significance. And this is a replica of a bottle that would have been served at the time of Henry IV. So we're very concerned about authenticity and heritage in France, and specifically at Laurent-Perrier. So we wanted to pay homage to the old style of making rosé champagne. And this is 100% Pinot Noir, so a very different kind of champagne. Very high quality, 100% Grand Cru, meaning coming from only the very highest, the top vineyards in Champagne, 10 specifically selected crus for Pinot Noir, and again blended and put into this bottle and then aged in that bottle for about 4 years. During that 4 years, we developed that fine bead prior to it being sold in the market.
Now, let's say that it's more than just a couple who are celebrating and you want to bring something a little larger. I noticed that you have 2 larger bottles. What are they called and what do they represent? Well,
big celebrations should call for big bottles, right? So I brought along 2 magnums of our prestige cuvées. These are the absolute top-of-the-line champagnes made by the house of Laurent-Perrier. This first one, the bottle size is called a magnum.
Okay.
And it's double the size of a standard bottle, which is 750 milliliters, and this is 1.5 liters. So it's about 10 glasses, which really, that's a good amount of champagne, and even if it's just a couple, if it's a big celebration. So this is our Grand Siècle. This is a multi-vintage blend, meaning wine that's from 3 years that we feel are of vintage quality. These are all non-vintage blends, the first 3 wines that we discussed. This is a blend of 3 very specific years that had complementary characteristics that when blended together create what we feel like is the best expression of what champagne can do. Champagne's about the blend, be it white and red grapes or be it about the years. So this is taking that to an even higher level of refinement.
And the final bottle that you brought along?
The final bottle is our vintage bottling of our prestige cuvée, which is called Alexandra. And this captures, when we speak about vintage in champagne...
Is that the name of someone from the family of Laurent-Perrier?
Indeed it is. And it's the daughter of the patriarch of the house. And this was bottled and released specifically for her wedding. And this has just been released in its 2004 vintage, and it really captures a special moment in time in Champagne. And 2004 was an absolutely beautiful harvest. It was difficult in the beginning, but it came through as being something truly memorable. So it's not common that we would bottle a vintage Champagne at Laurent-Perrier, but there was truly something special about 2004 that we felt was worth commemorating and also elevating to the status of our prestige cuvée, which is our Rosé Cuvée Alexandra.
Now, what does it cost to commemorate New Year's Eve? Just give us the range of prices from the top to the, well, I'm going to say bottom, but to the less expensive.
Sure. Well, in the Magnum format, we're looking at about $750 for Alexandra and Magnum, about half of that for the regular size bottle.
Well, you've got 10 people, so that's $75 a person.
A bargain, right? And then if it's a little bit of maybe a less elaborate celebration, our regular non-vintage brut is about $40 per bottle.
I want to thank you very much for being here. I thought you were going to be a very popular person around now.
I hope so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year from Laurent-Perrier, U.S.